Good evening, everyone. The Ranter is back to go into yet another rambling diatribe of the news of the day. And this is now going to be the post-midterm rant, as I already did the beforehand. Now, to kind of space this out a bit, I give it a little bit of background. Went in on that Tuesday to vote, and with the understanding that there was going to be a red wave, and so went into work. I'm still happy with the vote that I did for my congressman, and that was actually the only race up here in Fairfax, Virginia. So was happy to do that, but was expecting a red wave. I was expecting it, and I went through work. I stayed off of social medias and so forth while I was at work, because I was just going to be like, you know, we're going to take a hit, and it's just the way it is. We'll just have to, you know, work our way through this for the next 2 years, and we'll survive. I mean, I've been politically active and politically aware since the mid to late 90s, so I've seen the ups and downs, and I was aware even before I started voting about, you know, the contract for America during the Clinton era, and certainly once I got into voting. And you know, the first president I voted for was Bill Clinton on his second term. So, you know, in the grand scheme of things, I've been doing this a healthy amount of time. So I was expecting what tradition expects. And I was expecting it a little bit more because of the hyperbolic nature, our polarizing partisanship in our politics, and just how the vote was going to be and how the midterms was going down was going to be able to set the pulse and to figure out what type of America we really are having, what the people really are wanting. So I was, you know, I can admit that I wasn't feeling all that confident in what the track of our country is going. President Biden has not been filling me with any confidence, and his approval ratings at the time was what, 38%, I believe, and more of a lot of people were pointing out like his thought finding and kind of the examples of certain decline that, you know, people on Twitter are just loving to target, especially now it's Twitter's gone all musky. So yeah, so went through work, didn't go onto social media while at work, and already people were starting to take their victory laps on, you know, the red wave was going to crush through here. And then get home, and then get online, and then noticing that the red wave was late, because there's Democrats were holding their own. People were touting and cheering about, you know, Florida being like totally red, and there's like, oh, that's great, and I'm thinking, even when people were like upset about it, I'm still thinking, well, it's a red state. A relatively popular governor in DeSantis, and you know, there hasn't been too much indications of Florida flipping at any point, so I've just sort of took that as okay. Well, I think they're taking it as great victories, and I'm just saying no, because they're just kind of retaining their seats. Those are not gains, which seems to be something I would be repeating over and over again between that night and forward, but set that aside for now. So night goes on and goes on and goes on. It was actually a late night into the morning for me, because I was just watching all these results going up, and yeah, the red wave that crashed onto the bulwark of the Democrats was so massive it would be a trickle between my toes. There was no red wave. Now, we kind of have to explain this a bit, because, yes, indeed, as of today, the Republicans clinched the House. They got it. 218. They are in control. They're in majority. Now let's give the pros to that for the Republicans. For the Republican voters who voted for there to be a Republican-controlled House. Let me explain, at least a little bit layman-wise, the advantages of that. Okay? So, Republicans get control of the House. They can set the committees, who will run the committees, who will be the ones that will be the chairs of these committees. You could probably say goodbye to the January 6th. I'm sure they're not going to be compelling Trump to testify. Or if they did, they'll probably try to throw some Republicans on the committee, which they should have had in the first place. But, to try to monkey wrench that. So whatever teeth that had the January 6th committee, that's going to be gone. Republicans will be able to control the purse, the financials of this country, because that is what the congressional powers do. So they will have oversight over many of the bills, many of the policies that Biden and or the Democrats would want to come down. Especially, they will be they'll have the power to oversight whatever money we further give to Ukraine, which, as someone who balances on the understanding that we should defend Ukraine in a time of invasion, that does not mean that we send money over there like water. And I, for one, would like to understand that if we're going to send any further money, that's not going to be blank check, that there'll be explanations as to why and what it's going to be used for. And we need to see some results of this. Because I do not want us to go into turning this semi-proxy war into us having more boots on the ground that they're not mentioning that there are, but they are. And that shit's gonna have to be clarified. So there's that. And of course, the one big one is that the Republicans will be able to start their own investigations into their favorite talking points being Hunter Biden and his laptop, Joe Biden helping his son in some form or fashion, how Christopher Wray, how Merrick Garland is conducting the investigations, especially onto Donald Trump, and what they want to investigate them. Dr. Fauci, they want to investigate him. So we'll be able to do all that. That's the pros of them controlling the House for them. Now, before I go any further, I also need to explain something about when I talk about the traditions of the midterms and how there is a changeover. In our modern politics, going back to 1939, it is a traditional expectation that during a midterms of an incumbent president of a party that also controls the House and the Senate, that in the midterms, either the first or second one of their first or second term as president, in those midterms, that party would lose 4 Senate seats and at least 40 seats in the House of Representatives. Okay. Bill Clinton, who was a pretty semi-popular, charismatic guy as president, who did have a popularity to him, at the time of the contract for America, when the Republicans were running that in the midterms, Bill Clinton lost 54 House seats, okay, and flipped over to the Republicans. Barack Obama, an enigmatic, charismatic figure as President of the United States, who, with the supermajorities, could have done more, but for some reason, and we had a discussion earlier about this, for some reason decided to only use that force for trying to push healthcare, which was something we wanted, but there were other things that could have been easily knocked down before we got to health care and his Affordable Care Act. He was able to pass that on the cusp of his midterm. Tea Party comes in. We already had a flack of, people calling Obama a socialist probably a month into him being president, so that was a lovely honeymoon. Barack Obama, at his midterms, lost 63 House seats. Now, which leads us to Joe Biden. Joe Biden, who at the time prior to the midterms was at 39% of approval rating. As the news media would tell us that there were polls saying that we were going in the wrong direction. There is a lot of policies, issues that Democrats push, or were at least favorably mentioned in them, that Republicans ran against, and the regular folk wouldn't even be involved in this. And, too many social issues as opposed to worrying about the inflation and gas prices and the prices of food, etc., all going up. And Joe Biden, you have to admit, is not as popular or as engaging as a Barack Obama or a Bill Clinton. Sorry, he's not. I'm sure he's a reassuring voice, which I can understand. I can imagine that. And, compared to Donald Trump prior to 2020, yeah, he was probably more of a, normalizing, reassuring voice. And for Republicans who, since Biden has always been like that centrist that flirts with conservatism as much as he would ever do lip service to liberal progressive points of view, they know at least they could work with him. But all around, not popular, in political decline as much as various other forms of decline. You know how much he has lost in this midterm? This unpopular president of the United States and his party that was unpopular. He gained one Senate seat and lost the House for 2 seats. Republicans control the majority by 2. Maybe more if the other elections go by, but since they're clinched, since it's this little handful is what the Republicans will be working with. Let me remind you, Barack Obama lost 63. Bill Clinton lost 54. Biden it is unfathomable. No one imagined this. When I was previewing, talking about doing the post-midterm video, I did a little blurb, put it online, that, I didn't see that coming. Yeah, I was right. I did not see that coming. I told you the pros of what it means for the Republicans to be able to have control of the House, what they can do with that control, with that majority. Here's what they really can't do. They can't really push policy. Anything that they want to get through the House will not survive in the Senate. And if it manages to survive in the Senate, it will not survive a Biden veto. When they're doing their investigations, if they indeed go and attempt to impeach President Joe Biden for vengeance of the Democrats impeaching Donald Trump. If they go and do that, yeah, if they to the last man and woman voted all yes, they will have the majority vote. They can impeach Joe Biden. They can send their managers, their House managers, to the Senate to try to bring about the case for conviction to remove Joe Biden. That will fail, for you need 2/3 of the Senate. As it had failed for Donald Trump twice, as it had failed against Bill Clinton. I think it even failed towards Andrew Johnson. So policy, the Republicans cannot push anything without compromise. And since the Republicans, both sides do this, so let's not say I'm really piling on the Republicans, but in this instance we will say because the Republicans have to adhere, or at least some of them now, have to adhere to trying to appease the Trump crowd that has now mutated into this weird conspiracy theory, tinfoil, everything's an election fraud and a sham and this and that they have to never seem to be compromising with Democrats, or they might be considered rhinos, as Donald Trump had been whining the last few days about, Glenn Youngkin. He's a fake Republican. He's a rhino. Blistering Mitch McConnell and being racist towards his wife, who was in his cabinet. I go on Twitter and see the people who are, happy about the Republicans taking over the House, as such as it is. And, I try to mention is that, that Donald Trump factor really was a bang-up job in the midterms, wasn't it? And people go, yeah, it was. He got 93% of the people that elected. And I had to remind them, no, those people that retained their seats, they were not gains. Those majority of the people that he was sponsoring, that he was backing, failed. And those people that was going to take seats, that were to make gains, failed. Now I want to propose this to you, my gentle snowflakes. Why is it? Why on earth would it be that Joe Biden's Democratic Party would survive a midterms? That there would not be a red wave crashing over, and there would be why that election defied the traditions that we've seen from presidents on down since 1939. Again, you can't really say it's Joe Biden's popularity. You can't say that people are thinking we're in the right direction, so we're going to stay on this horse across the stream. There has to be other factors involved. Could it be that the regular Republicans, regular conservatives who have conservative Republican values that we will disagree with and we will continue to disagree with, but are not flame hair on fire, totally far right, totally tinfoil, who just wants to get us back to us just talking about politics and without the hate? Perhaps there are people that want to get beyond Donald Trump, that beyond that loyalty oath that Republicans are supposed to swear by the blood of their children for. Because I have to remind you, especially for those who talk about election denial and the 2020 got them stolen, is that the practicality, the pragmatism of why that is not the case. I will remind you, because I've said this in multiple videos beforehand. If the Democrats were really, really, really stealing an election, they would have made sure Joe Biden had a robust majority in the House and in the Senate. That did not happen. And I'm certainly wasn't hearing during 2020 how many of those Republicans who won their elections or retained their positions were, although the election got stolen, except for mine. Mine was fine. If it was really a stolen election, that little majority in the Senate that the Democrats had, that would require Kamala Harris to show up and vote in order to make sure there was a majority. That would not be the case. There would be a lot more people, a lot more D's in that chamber, as much more as there should have been more in the House. But that didn't happen. You can't say that this election was stolen just for the president and not for the down ballots. You can't just say that people would be satisfied with that and be content with the fact that they fraudulently elected a president who would have more than likely an ineffectual run because of the lack of people in positions in the House and the Senate. As you can see, everything is pulling teeth the past 2 years, not only against Republicans but against two conservative Democrats who operate from ruby red states and or ruby red districts that requires them to adhere to their own voters, to represent their own voters, and even though they're Democrats, they're also conservative. So for their own political livelihood, there's no shame in that. But for their own political livelihood, they have to see it from that either middle ground or slightly to the right, and they have to make sure they can appease the people that are around them in their own state. So they can make these power plays, and they can bring bills down. But with the configuration that we have now, that two Democrats that sit on the fence who will get fist bumps by Republicans when they vote with them to kill Democratic measures, one is now nullified. We have to wait until the end of the Georgia runoff to see if Warnock or Walker will take the Georgia Senate seat. And if Warnock does, that nullifies the other. Then it's just a simple majority. Now, a reminder that just because a red wave dissipated by the time it hit the dam, now it's a little trickle. And they do have the House. Democrats are going to have to understand here is that, we survived, but that doesn't mean we won. Because like the Republicans that's going to be running a House with ineffectual numbers to push any policies, Democrats have the same problem going the other way. We are in this loggerhead. Once again, we're so polarized back and forth that any major political measures, any policies will require the American genius, which is called compromise. But the problem is, compromise is now a dirty word. No one wants to do that. Either it's all one way, or all the other way. And it becomes more and more over the top of what we want on our way or the highway bullshit, that even if there was a point of compromise, no one would want to go that far out. Either that far out left or that far out right. So it is not as if that means all the Democrats are all far left or all the Republicans are all far right. I think the loudest people in the room are those who, bank progressive or bank conservative, but the people who actually do the work are in the middle. But even they, be the Democrats or Republicans, still have to adhere to the party line, or at least the party of the people's line. And so, again, compromise becomes, we don't want to do that. We need to do that. As it has been for all the years that I've watched politics, there's a lot of things that need fixing. A lot of things that we need a serious adult, mature mind and minds to get around and to solve problems. The problem with solving these problems is that too many people are banking and getting donations and using it as political points that they don't really want to solve the problem. Voter registration, voter ID issues, people who worry about them unable to vote because of new laws, or feel like they're being X'd out of voting districts, and people are moving shell games of voting places where people would normally be able to vote for, but they redistrict so you're not able to vote there no more. That stuff could have been, at any point between election cycles, we could have had serious congressional discussion, compromises on nailing this down so this no longer becomes an issue. But apparently we don't want to do that. We just want to cry about it and make it a point of contention when we get close to election time, when something like that we could solve. But we want that problem. The things that I've watched, when I watch the social media and how people are reacting and are trying, Republicans are trying to put the bright spin, the nice spin of we have control of the House, even though I'm not really gonna do much with it. And we fired Nancy, Trump said that, they're saying that, fire Nancy. No, you didn't. No, she's not going anywhere. In fact, she got reelected. She will be there. Sure, she'll pass the gavel, but she'll most likely be the minority leader. She'll have the same amount of exposure as Kevin McCarthy did while he was minority leader. She will still be the nominal face of the Democrats until somebody comes along to oust her, or she relents and lets somebody else take the reins. But she's not going anywhere. She's not fired. That is just always look on the bright side of life, which is the new motif here of oh, we got the majority. Oh, well, not much. We're in control. Eh. But, again, whatever control they have, they won't be able to push policy. They can do investigations, and that will be all the news you'll see from your news media punditry, and wherever you get your news online, the big headlines, all the front pages will be whoever the Republicans will investigate, and all the sound bites and all the news bites will be about that. They'll get Jim Jordan on there, still allergic to his own jacket, and everyone else, and they'll talk about how we're gonna go after Hunter Biden's laptop, yeah, and go after Joe Biden and go after everybody else, and it'll be great fun, and then everyone will get involved, and it'll just be a nice, happy thing. It will go nowhere, but it will be entertaining, and it will be something that they will want you to focus on for the next 2 years. What will happen next as we investigate. you know, I've said this before. Have no issues with them investigating. I don't think there should be a fear in investigating. So let them. They'll have the power for it. They have nothing. Seriously, they have nothing better to do. So let them do that. Fine. Here's the thing. During the Bill Clinton impeachment trial, during that time of Ken Starr compiling his evidence, from Paula Jones to Monica Lewinsky and the lie and the definition of is, all that stuff. After a while, the worm turned, especially when this was leading into the second term. And people who were saturated with this, all the news, and this made Fox News, the Bill Clinton impeachment and the Monica Lewinsky stuff. That everyone started viewing on that, right? But after a while, we just get sick of it. As viewers, as people, it's like, this is not really, where's the serious nature to this? And, and after a while, it just became a turnoff. Which, is the threat of that happening with all the investigations and all the punditry, talking points against Trump. Because, after a while, you have to say that, especially with those when they talk about, he violated the Emoluments Clause, or the Logan Act, or the Hatch Act, or this or that, and it's just like, okay, you say that he did, then go in and either investigate it, or indict, or point the finger, do something. But just have your experts come on the shows, just he might have done this, or he might have done that. This may be might of all this other things. I mean, the stuff that he did on Mar-a-Lago during that knock warrant, which was completely violent and traumatized everybody I know. It was a national tragedy. There's more evidence in that can lead to criminal, which may now go away now because of Republicans controlling the House and pull the plug on the January 6th committee. There's some saying that Trump's big announcement was less about him making that announcement for the obvious reasons and more about him making the announcement so that maybe the DOJ will no longer pursue him as vehemently as they've been, because Merrick Garland moves rather slowly about this. Maybe. I mean, that makes a case. I mean, people bet quotations as saying that, Trump ran for president and wanted to be president because that helped him with his legal troubles. I can believe that. I don't see anything patriotic coming out of him. But I believe that. But again, the saturation of all Trump all the time is a turn off to those people who are reasonable, who may not have been a fan of Trump, but you know what? Fuck you. I don't want to hear this shit anymore. Just change the channel. Which is the same thing, and then when they hear Trump and him drolling on about the same usual suspects and the same 10 things that he always likes to talk about in his rallies, that, the hardcore, Trump sycophants will all still clap at, but then you notice that people are walking away in the background, and there's less people than they were beforehand, even though they'll tout the crowd size. But again, he's the master of perception is reality. You always have to give him that, and you have to respect that too. But when the news punditry got it wrong by the oversaturation of going after Trump as they oversaturated going after Clinton, they got the red wave wrong too. Both sides of the news media was promoting this red wave. And there were other people, like Michael Moore, who was like, get out of the noise, anything about the regular people, and he didn't think there was a red wave coming. He's also the same one that predicted Donald Trump would go in 2016. So, That again, you cut away the noise and you get to regular folk, who just wants to have their values and just want to be represented. Maybe don't want to be dealing with, investigations on end, don't want to be dealing with all this crazy shit, and certainly don't want this Trump still being the albatross to the Republican Party. And either they didn't come out, or they didn't quite get the memo to come out, or they voted the other way. But, circling back a bit as to why Joe Biden, not exactly popular, not exactly charismatic, can be reassuring if you're interested in that, but nonetheless, a lukewarm president in a declining presidency in a declining Democratic Party that seems to be more and more out of touch with what regular people are going through vis-a-vis our economic issues with inflation and so forth. How did he survive the midterms, his party, with losing the House with such few seats in majority? Where his presidential predecessor in Barack Obama lost over 60 and Bill Clinton lost over 50. I would humbly suggest to you that maybe it was Trump. Maybe there was too many people that has gotten tired. That they didn't want to hear about the crackpot shit. They didn't want to hear about election denial. They didn't want to hear about, going to investigate everyone under the sun for vengeance. That these regular men and women want to hear the plans of their congressmen or their senators. All right, what are you going to do about inflation? Oh, we're going to investigate. Okay, what are you going to do about gas prices? Oh, we're going to investigate. What are you going to do? What are you going to do about crime? Oh, we're going to fire Nancy. And it turns out, outside of the noise that they will be doing, they don't really have a plan. Or they do the same cop-out of like, oh, we got a plan. We totally got a plan. Oh, you're going to love this plan, but you're going to have to vote for us first before we even reveal this plan to you. But, it's something special. It'll change the way Americans live their lives for the better. You just got to vote for us. There is no other reason that I can see as to be why the Republicans did not gain as many seats as traditionally they expected to. With everything that was going on in this country, with everything they promoted and demonized of the other that they always do in these elections, point their fingers at all the conspiracy theory nuts, any of this shit, there was no reason for people who feel like they have such a momentum. This is the day, yeah. There's no reason that they should not have a greater majority win in the House, maybe picked up seats in the Senate. The Senate, mathematically, actually blows me away that the Democrats were able to gain a seat for that. I explained this over and over again in my previous videos. That it's such a sliver. It's such a sliver of a majority. It was 49 active sitting senators and Kamala Harris, who can just swoop in to be that 50th. But that was the majority. It easily could be just anything they try to pass could be blown away by one or two Democratic senators voting no. I don't know how demoralizing that is. in terms of having a majority. And this is why, even at the time, when people were going, "Oh, that doesn't matter. We have the majority. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. We have the majority. That's all that matters. We won. That's all that matters." And even I, who obviously am an unabashed Trump critic and hater of such, and find the sycophantic Republican Party, those who show that he is dear leaders, disgusting. I say that it is not enough just to win, just to eke by. How are you eking by with this? Why aren't you disturbed by this? Because the same problem that the Republicans are going to have now is the same problem that we had in 2020. You know, it just flips just a little tiny way, one way or the other. And that is a problem. That is a problem on both sides of the aisle here. And there's going to be a problem that goes into 2024. So whatever the Democrats, they have to do some soul searching as much as the Republicans, because I know the Republicans, from what we are seeing, Republicans are already like in kind of like, I don't know, maybe we should like kind of dump Trump. No, you don't you dare dump Trump. But he didn't really help us. Yes, he helped us all. No, he didn't. Yes, he did. That argument with themselves as I'm arguing with myself on it. But it is the same thing, is that there are plenty of Republicans who are now like being kind of vocal. And them having enough of being, have to lick the boot in order to gain, favoritism on someone who's so self-serving, is that he's using the Republican money that they send him just for his legal troubles. That he sends a fraction of that money devoted to his candidates that he wanted to push. Even those who did win, like Vance, he humiliates him. Calling him, justly, he's a kiss ass. He kisses my ass. And as he should if he wants my support. And he does. Isn't that great? And he won. Yay! That's the powerful leaders you got there. I never believe in regression. I don't believe in the concept of us going back. That everything that we do, every experience that we suffer through, or we exaltedly win, or we learn to go through, helps mold us with that experience to our future. We can't go backwards from Trump. We have to go forward beyond Trump. And there is a beyond Trump point. And we're even seeing it in the Republican Party with the push of DeSantis, which is now Trump is now going after. But you can see it in certain Republican slights that they've been giving to Trump, especially over the midterms. And it may not be as dramatic as the news punditry will give it, because news media is already going, "Oh, there's a Republican civil war. Oh, Kevin McCarthy's not going to get that speaker seat. There's not going to be enough votes for him. Oh no!" I mean, they tried ousting. Rick Scott tried to oust Mitch McConnell because Rick Skeletor Scott is a Trump devotee, and Mitch McConnell is the great turtle as he is. He was not doing too well in helping those Republicans out, so he must be destroyed. And Mitch easily retained his minority leader status. But now the talk about Kevin McCarthy might not survive that. So that's one of the things that you're going to be looking forward to. You're going to be looking forward to this political infighting. That's going to be fun for about a week or so. Doing the the seating of the chairs of the committees. That will be fun too. That will be owning the libs, yay, whatever. And then start of the investigations, or they'll promote the investigations, and yay, great, whatever. But they will be ineffectual any other way. Whatever they will pass, if it does not help the American people, or it does not skew to the middle, it doesn't have to be liberal, it doesn't really have to be progressive per se, but it's enough of the middle that there's compromise or room to compromise, it won't survive the Senate. And somehow it does survive the Senate, it won't survive the veto. And once again, if they want to remove that obstacle of the veto to try to impeach Joe Biden, maybe they can get that through in the House, but it will die in the Senate. And all of this from 2022 to 2024 will be what they will be doing. Ask any of these people what are their plans on inflation now that they are in charge, or any of the other economic, domestic issues or foreign issues that they're touting out and blaming and demonizing Biden for to get your votes. They got your votes. Ask them, when is that vote going to come up for that? And they'll be hand waving, and they'll be, no, we have to investigate first. We have to investigate. We got to impeach. Investigate. And once again, you are reminded, as we were reminded in the first years of Obama, we were reminded this past 2 years with Biden, that the cause sometimes is just there to be a political prop. That regardless of what they were yelling and shouting and chanting, making nice sound bites out of all the causes that they were going to fight for, that they're going to succeed and they're going to tear these people down over it. Poof. Gone. Gone by the time they sit in their seats in the majority. And again, as I said, as much as there's justifiable reasons to say what happened with the Democrats in 2020 up on certain bills and so forth, you can always say rightfully that everything is worth fighting for and everything is room for compromise. And compromise, which is the American genius, I remind you, you propose something, they counter-propose something, you give a concession, they give a concession. You don't get everything you want, they don't get everything you want, but you both gain something so that you make the agreement, take the steps forward, and then you have progress. Without the Great Compromise, there would have been civil war in this country 30 years before the 1860s. Some things don't take instantly. Some things takes a long time. As my pro-life friends would remind you, that Roe v. Wade then came out in the late 70s. The Republicans, even though they hated and detested the concept of this, they didn't throw their eggs in one basket to destroy it immediately. They waited 40 years. But they watched and they planned and they schemed. People who were in office then would retire. Those who came after them would follow what their predecessors were pushing and doing. They knew how to prioritize the local races, the local elections, state elections, while I noticed this for years, how Democrats would always talk about the big national issues, the big national points. All the national elections, that was it. Every senator and congressman was so key to those national points. Republicans quietly gained ground in big state houses and made sure they got the state houses, so they got the numbers, so that when Amy Coney Barrett came along, they knew that the numbers in the Supreme Court was going to go their way, and so finally they started out the heartbeat bills and passed them and making them so horrible to folk, to women, to women's friends. If they dare to help them, they'll get charged too. Transporting them, make sure they safely go here and there. Evil bastards. Okay. Make it so hard for them that these bills get challenged and challenged and challenged and challenged to the Supreme Court, where it gets killed. That didn't happen overnight. That was a commitment over 40 years to a cause. Now, again, when I talk about causes, the one drawback I think that they're going to be all shucks about is that they're no longer going to get that good donation money for abortion, but it's a good trade-off, I would imagine. It is behooving of the Democrats to think in these long-term goals, that we cannot have everything instantly now, as Republicans cannot have everything instantly now. Compromises have to be maintained, have to be made. You get something, we get something, we lose something, you lose something. But in the end, there's enough on both sides to make the agreement move forward. Just because something is right, it should be done right, unfortunately does not mean it can be done right now. There were practicalities in it. This is the same thing as Joe Biden saying that he couldn't, with the numbers that they have, cannot codify Roe v. Wade. And I was on Twitter, and someone posted that, and she didn't quite understand, why. And I was just like, unfortunately, he's right. There isn't the numbers for that, because you need a robust Senate and a robust House to do that, and that's not going to happen in this juncture. If you want it to happen, then you have to think about the long term. That this is not an instant fix. That nothing in our politics in this country is an instant fix. You have to make the time and make the effort to do so. And you have to have the will to do it. And you have to have the will to realize that whatever you want to accomplish might not even accomplish in your lifetime. But if you do enough to move it along the way, that the next person that picks up the ball, takes it farther down, will have more success. And will have more success from your example for wherever you're going for here. Alright, I ranted enough about this. But, I've been very, you can say that I've been very, considerate on both sides here. That, I'm not spiking a football whatsoever, that I was presenting myself with a bit more understanding of what is going on between the Democrats and Republicans and so forth. But I'm going to end this with my enjoyment in pettiness. So Republicans, you got the majority in the House. You got me 2 seats? Oh, okay. And here's my congratulations. You got the House. Have fun with that. The Ranter rants because the urge to rant is rising. And there's one last bit I'm going to do about this. In terms of Trump's announcement, I don't know if I was really going to do a video on it. I touched on a bit that I think that the Trump effect was the reason why the midterms really did suck for Republicans, and whatever they gained was a pale shadow compared to the history of midterm changeovers. And it ain't no Joe Biden that in his charisma or credibility that tilt the scales here. So I don't know if I'm going to do a video on it. I have to think about it. Well, what do you think? Give me an opinion from wherever you can find me. But until next time.